The views expressed here are those of the authors and do not in any way represent the views of Sophia TV.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Ladies First. I'm joined here by the panelists Sada Russell, Nishat. Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to discuss with you ladies, during the time of Imam Hussein, the camp was, as we know, deprived of food and water and the struggles that everybody went through. Bringing it back to 2016, we have many families, especially single females, who struggle financially. Do we have any stories on how people struggle in 2016 with food and water? Because a lot of the time people watch this in other countries and seem to think that the West is paved with opportunity and gold paved streets, exactly. But could any of you relay any stories of how people and individuals do struggle here or have that you know of?
Not so much with food and water, but when you're working with children, you realise the families that are struggling. You notice things like school uniforms, you know, sometimes they're not able to come on school trips, things like that. You have a sense of there's some financial hardship at home. And it's sad that you know that there's nowhere they can reach out to. There's no one that would, like an organisation or such. But with food and water, I know that there are like food banks that have been organised recently for people who need a little extra support.
Any experiences you have, Sarah? So go ahead, Nishat.
Sorry, coming back to what Sarah just said, you know, children, when you see that they can't afford such things, and you know, when you have say charity week or something, and you ask people to bring in, say if you're having a bake sale or something, and they can't even afford to bring any food in, even, you know, the tiniest food. And at break times, you know, they have free school meals which they have at lunchtime, but then they can't even afford to bring a snack for themselves for break time. No,
and school fairs and stuff when other children have a little bit of change, they don't have a bit,
and they don't have any.
It's really heartbreaking.
It is really heartbreaking.
It's interesting. I think I have seen a lot of call outs to, you know, for a lot of say there's situations where say a sister and a mother and all her children are literally sort of perhaps just fleeing a situation, so they've just come out from an abusive marriage, for example. The sisters has limited, you know, no money literally, and there have been call-outs to Muslims, to also other sisters to get together and actually provide help until she can get further help. But this is something that is not so much heard of, because we're always thinking, well, we're here, we have a benefit system, but actually it's not really serving as we think. As such, it's not always as simple as we think, because there are people struggling actually, depending on what part of England you live, for example, or okay, I wouldn't want to sort of limit this to being a situation, but we are living in England, of course, so we have to, obviously I think we could take into consideration that there are ways as sisters and as brothers and sisters, all of us we have to look after you, we have to help each other. If someone is calling for help, then surely we should.
But how would you go about getting help? Would you know? I wouldn't have the faintest clue if I was in a situation. I think realistically the last people I would go to is any Muslims, quite frankly, because one, I'd be embarrassed, two, the hoops you have to go through in proving that you need help.
I think they remain anonymous a lot of the time, because you get other sisters who are working in, there are organisations now, Muslim ones actually, that are helping, you know, say domestic violence by people who are actually literally in desperate need because they've literally come out of a situation, but actually taken into a very difficult situation of actually having not a roof or food, basic needs, so that need the provision. It's like giving them even a temporary home to stay, if any. You know, we have heard of that, where sisters will be like, or a family will be like, yes, please, you know, let the sister come, we've got a spare room, and it's a temporary measures. And we do have such beautiful stories where we do help each other.
You know how you were saying about being too embarrassed to ask, but when you're that poor and you don't have even anything to feed on, that embarrassment disappears with it.
I don't know, because I know the sister, subhanAllah, and she, Allah protect her, I don't know where she is now, but she was so embarrassed that she kept driving around the masjid because she didn't have, with her 5 kids, so she didn't want to go in and ask. And she just sat there and prayed, and then alhamdulillah some people came and said, we saw you driving around, is there anything that you need? But she was mortified. She felt more comfortable going to other faith religions and having her dignity than to go and having to prove, and then people asking you, well, don't you have family, don't you
but
have
it's such a
things?
shame. We're supposed to be brothers and sisters, and the first person when you need help that you think of should be your brothers and your sisters. It should be like automatic, and you don't think you're going to get judged, or you know, I hope that if God forbid one day if I'm in a situation where I need to say, you know what, I need support or help in any way, that I would have the confidence to turn to someone from my community rather than someone from outside. And if you think that other people, like other religions, other Abrahamic religions, they are so well established as a community because they keep their problems to themselves. They support each other. They are the backbone.
This
of
is
it,
true,
you
and
know.
everybody. So, if they need a tailor, they go to someone in their community who's a tailor. And, I actually lost a friend who, well, not as in died, but she left Islam because she didn't have the support that she needed in the community. She had a disabled child, and nobody helped, and she was struggling because she was a single parent and she couldn't get a job because she had a child. And then the first people that came to her were the Christians, who are very organised. You have the Salvation Army, they'll find you somewhere quickly. And she said that the love that she found then with them, she said that, you know, I didn't find that in Islam, and they're the ones who actually helped feed me, clothe me, put me in a job, accepted me. There wasn't any judgment or anything. I thought that's really sad.
Perhaps it's because we're living in a country that is predominantly Christian based, as we say. I mean, the church literally after, obviously it's not anymore sort of more in charge of the country, but as such they are actually quite still, they have established kind of organisations, and I think Muslims are actually catching up with that. There is now. We just don't. I don't think. I think we're in progress in that to that degree. There are lots of organisations now.
I remember a time of my life quite a while ago now where I needed a bit of extra emotional support. It was no one from my community that offered that. It was people from Jehovah's Witnesses community that were, although I didn't reach out to them, I got involved in it through a friend, and they would just call to see if I'm okay, to see if I needed anything. Like,
and sometimes that's all you need is someone to say.
I knew that they were constantly there, whatever time, you know, and it's a shame that there is nothing like that in our community.
They prioritise that.
But we are a worldwide religion. We should have the resources. We should have the ability, and you know.
I think unfortunately when we look at a lot of organisations, there's we look at the intention, the agenda behind it, and I think with, like when you mentioned, there are some certain religions or faiths where they will say the way we can increase people to follow our religion is if we go through kindness and generosity and helping people. But that's what Islam is supposed to do. You know, the principles are there.
And similarly, there might be other people of other faiths that might have found that or got that from a Muslim community, you know, just like some other might have found it from other. So we don't know. And I know there are communities, you know, within Muslim communities that have put, you know, their financials aside, you know, for such causes.
That's
To
wonderful.
be brought to attention, I do actually believe there's always room for improvement, and as Sarah mentioned, too many points that actually lead to that sort of understanding that we're always in need to we have to look and address the situation we're in and how we can improve ourselves, because that is ultimately every human responsibility, is always to keep reflecting and look actually how are we really going to practically improve our
We're talking
care
about
system.
poverty and people who are in need a little bit of extra support, and it just brings to mind the Prophet's hadith that if you fall asleep and your stomach is full and your neighbour's stomach is empty, you're not a Muslim.
That's right.
It's literally that clear cut that you need to be aware of your neighbours and aware of anyone in your community that needs help. But to be honest, from a personal point of view, I can't say that I've ever thought of, oh, I wonder who's hungry on my street tonight. You know, we a lot of the time we're just so self-absorbed that we don't think that there are other people that actually don't know when they're going to eat next, or you know.
And a lot of these people, Sonisha, are actually people who are working. There's a lot of as we know, the property prices in London are outrageous just
Yeah.
for renting and stuff. And if you're a single parent, male or female, you're basically working to live and living to work. There isn't any
Yeah.
extra,
There's nothing to
as
put
would
away.
say, money for jams, so you
No.
can have the little treats. I personally know of somebody I was quite shocked, and this is again from my lad, that their children are in private school and they live in a really nice postcoded area, but the child doesn't eat. And I only knew that because they stayed with me, and I was like, oh my gosh, and didn't have any clothes. And I only knew that because I remembered that I'd given the clothes for charity and this person took it. And I felt really upset. And I just thought, look, you're going to private school. You know, the ego says, well, you can afford private school, but you can't afford food and everyday necessities. And I was shocked to find out a lot of parents can't. Education is given so much focus and attention that to give your children the best start, you need to go to private school. Whereas eating, well, having one meal a day, it's beans on toast, for example, it's enough. And I was trying to, again, going back to my son, I keep repeating him because I really do believe these are lessons, and I try and let him see that, you know, in this age, all the kids are going on about, are we rich, are we poor, do we have this and that? And I'm like, you don't understand what it's like to have 3 meals a day,
Yeah.
snacks, pocket money, and whatever. And just imagine, you know, and then you go into their closet, look how much shoes and clothes do you have, how many pairs of legs do you have, and they forget. And this is during the month of Muharram. I think those examples, I'm just reminding myself are important, that look how much we have, rather than, because you know, we're in this society that, you know, the glass is always half empty, rather than
There's
half
always
full.
something better to get. Something.
Subhanallah.
I was
Go ahead.
going to add to what Sarah was saying about, you know, not knowing if any person in our street is hungry.
Yeah.
But you know, talking about food, we eat so much food. You know, sometimes we don't even need it. And you know, you open our cupboards and there'll be snacks in there that we don't even go to eat for days. And how many times have we thought, you know what, today when I go shopping, I will give this much amount to, you know, towards a different homeless person or something. But no, we're always just, you know, making sure our cupboards are full of food and eating even when we don't need to eat.
And you realise that in how much food we have and how much blessings we have in Ramadan. When you have so much time you can't eat, you don't know what else to do.
Exactly.
I think it's a very important reminder that even after the holy month of Ramadan, that we don't abandon those or forget or neglect the what we have gained from there, and to actually maintain that balance. I know it sounds very, you know, cliche probably, but actually it's really important to do that. And
I was gonna, oh God, it's radical, but I was gonna think, you know, when we give our either Fitr out and the zakat or whatever, I'm sure obviously there's rulings on where it should go to. I'd actually like to see the money put back in the community, in terms of, we have an aging population who I'm sure want to go to the masjid and stuff. Maybe we could use that money to buy them a bus, or have our own Meals on Wheels service, that they can make sure the food is halal and cooked with, you know, good intention, etc. One thing that personally bothers me is when you give charity, most of the time,
It goes abroad.
and you know this, Nishad, it goes abroad. And I understand that our money goes a long way, but I really do believe that charity starts at home. There are people here, single parents, widows, people who've just got divorced, students who are away from home. You know, it's Eid, they don't have money, they don't even have the money to get a ticket to go home. Or why don't we have things like that? Like during Muharram, instead of all rushing to stuff our faces, why don't we 10 students who are at whatever university, invite them down to have a cooked meal or
Because I think there's
something.
this perception that because we're in London or anywhere else in Europe, we're well to do and we have lots of spare cash, and people back home are more deserving of it for some.
But then there are people as close as to us as within our family who, you know, who need it, and
Exactly.
within our own community who need it. So why do we need to look that far?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a lot of stuff that we could do in our community that if the donations were put back in our community, there's so many improvements, and and things we could organise for children, for the elderly, for single parents.
And there are some people, though, you know, the intention behind giving as well. You know, there are some people who give very freely to, you know, causes out there, you know. But then when it comes to your own family, they'll say, oh, but what are you going to, I'm going to give you this much money. What are you going to spend it on? And how are you going to do, you know, are you spending in what I want you to spend it in, you know? And
I think once you've given and your intention is pure, you shouldn't question it,
No,
and you
yeah,
should
you
try, like
wouldn't.
really. People do that because they're trying to control what like it's like, okay, I paid and do it. You know, it's like that mistrust, like actually, where's my money gone? Should I have given it somewhere else? And in a way, sometimes that leads. It's kind of almost to it's like shaitan saying, you know, influencing us to actually just not give at all, because actually there is an art in giving, and I think we need to master that by becoming a lot more. Definitely check charity. You know, if you have it, there are charities. You know, we know that there are, but actually be responsible as well. We should. I think there's an element that we should have some concern, because a lot of the time we know it's a business, so we have to think.
But there's families
you
here
know,
in the
just-
Muslim community
you could
that
give
don't
it
have
directly.
meat for
directly.
days.
No,
Yeah,
true.
grassroots is the
These
word.
days,
Grassroots
meat
of
and
it
vegetable
is really
processing.
important. Whatever.
Exactly. And as Nishat
Yeah,
was
yeah.
saying, these days meat and vegetables cost the same. There's
Yeah.
lots of families that have to make the choice between, you know, a
But then
kosher
you
or
know,
shop
we were
food.
talking about single females who can't, you know, who can't
Yes.
afford. And I think the best thing, ideal thing, would also be to maybe put something aside for such women to help them get back into work, and you know, so that they're able to support
Perhaps
their
try and have
families.
a system where they could try and find maybe a suitable spouse for them as well,
Yeah.
because it's not it's, you know, it's not, we're not,
It's not easy
this is
being
used to
single
be
parent.
a situation where people were on, you know, had children, families, children or whatever, and then they would remarry, and that's, you know, sharing a life with someone, because living realistically, even married couples now can't survive barely, you know.
And both of them work.
Both of them
yeah.
But
working.
even Eid presents, you don't presume that everybody gets an Eid
Yeah.
present because you can't afford it. And you know, we have so many Eids, mashallah, you know, it gets a bit expensive sometimes. But I was speaking to a friend, and she has the same concept that charity should stay at home, and she was saying, well, maybe in the Middle East, if one of you has a bag of rice and the other neighbour has an onion and the other neighbour has butter, they all get together and they make something out of it. Here, you don't know if I'm eating or not. You just presume that, you know, because I can buy something for 99p, I'm going to do it.
Really
We
do.
don't have that connection
Yeah.
here with each other.
You gave a very good example of how sometimes what we prioritise and how we spend our money. Again, it's not necessarily, oh, you know, look, it's a single mum with kids that she's poor. That's very stereotypical, actually. Look, we realistically, Allah provides. It's not something where you can say, you know, because this is her circumstances, that she must be, you know, like in need. It's not necessarily the case. It's just maybe she's not spending wisely, like you said, deciding to spend it on a private, you know, something that's out of her means, but actually not prioritising the actual necessities, which are, you know, food and, you know, obviously like having the clothing and the right clothes, you know, clean
But
clothes.
there are people like that, and I had a thought and it just skipped my mind. But I was thinking about my son's school, where they have a hardship fund, and it really amazes me where they said, could you donate £30, because there are people who can't afford a school uniform, and I'm like, we take that for granted so much. But I think, you know, you were saying doing stuff for people who are maybe single females or widows or whatever, it can be done in such a subtle way. Like, I don't think anybody's asked me what happens to my son on Muharram or whatever, when the majlises are or whatever, because nobody cares. Everybody presumes that because we're Muslims, we have a massive family background. You know, there's 50 aunties and uncles here. We all get along splendidly. But there's things, you know, there's people in our community that are lonely, especially the senior citizens, you know. Their family members might be in another state, you know, state of
But
the
I also
country.
believe in, when you ask, I'm hoping, and in some cases, when you ask, you get given. You know.
But why should you
But-
ask? You shouldn't even be
Because
asking.
not everyone is, you know, aware of all of this. So, for example, when this asking thing comes to me, when I have a child with special needs, and there's so much I want her to be able to do,
Yes.
but nobody's come going to come to me and say, oh, Nisha, you know, oh, because your daughter is like, would you like her to be entered in a Quran competition, for example? No. If there's a Quran competition, I have to go up there and say, okay, what are you going to be able to provide for my daughter? So I think if there is a need, and in the community is, or the elders of the community are made aware of it, it will be provided.
Yeah, well, everybody deserves, everybody in this life wants to have their dignity in this life, you know. And the thing is, if you ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He provides. He's the quickest to respond. I know this, we all know this. This is a matter of, you know, faith. Like, we put our heart wholeheartedly, you know, our whole heart, our trust and our hopes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He provides. It isn't something, I know, like, even you have the strength to be able to deal with things like, you can't have, you put things into perspective in the end of the day, and you realise, actually, with what Allah has given me right now, I will have to think the wisest way that what am I going to do with this provision? Because we all have, there's no such thing. I think Allah provides accordingly, like, and perhaps it's a little bit tight, you know, but these things are not forever. I think you get tested in these ways, and you have children, yes, but I do honestly believe, like, when you do not worry about these things, like, you shouldn't be your ruzi, you know, your income, your daily bread. We can't really worry about it, but you know that honestly it is amazing how when you do have that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He does provide.
But it is scary because you know it's coming.
We know there's poverty, we know there are people of
so
faith
that's
who do suffer and they are hungry. I'm not going to deny that would be ridiculous to do that. We know there are refugees, people are getting help, but then we have to, as brothers and sisters, we have to protect each other's dignity. We don't expose them. You shouldn't be naming them. But for exploitation is so bad, and I find that that's the problem with a lot of charities, that there's an element of exploitation. That's why people are worried about asking for help, right?
Yeah, and coming back to what you said, that Allah has made that provision available, but there are others who are so greedy, who want more for themselves, that provision is blocked to get to the right channel then.
Well, maybe on Eid, I'm not saying you do it that way, but give an envelope and put it in someone's bag while they're praying, they don't know where it's from. £20 could help somebody.
Yes.
And maybe
to us it seems like a little bit, but to them it could change.
You know, a toy
they
for
could buy
somebody could help somebody. You were saying Quran, entering your daughter into the Quran thing, but I bet somebody came and asked you, can I take your daughter to blah 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 one weekend? You would be grateful because it would be an experience. But I just think we need to dig a little bit deeper, and as we said on the previous episode, we can go to all the majlises that we want, but unless we start using our brains and our conscience, what's the point?
It's a matter of heart. I think we miss a lot, and the fact that, you know, we mustn't forget the element of love as well. That the love for each other. Loving Allah is actually that. It's when we actually care for one another, and we're really careful that everybody else is, you know, they're you respecting them, you're respecting yourself as mainly, because you don't expose those who are in need. You actually protect them. Like, you don't allow, like, that's why we say, Allah says, you know, when you give it, you do it secretly. You don't openly, like, I helped so and so. This is something that actually is about feeding the ego, and we need to be humble.
But you don't know, one day you might be in that situation, and then somebody will be, you know, telling everybody that they helped you, and it's not a nice feeling to think that you know you've had not handouts, but you know that you've had.
That's why we shouldn't do that.
And the feeling, you know, I know somebody very close to me who passed away, and he was very wealthy, and on his funeral, so many people came and said, "Oh my God, you know, we're going to miss this man. He's done so much for us." Being so close to him, I never knew that he was that sort that he would do. He did a lot for our family, but I didn't know he would do it for others as well. And to see so many people come to his funeral and say, you know, "Oh, we're going to miss this man. He's done this and this for us." Tearing, you know, and
well, that's how we should be as Muslims. These are not just stories. These are people who lived in, you know, these personalities lived amongst us, lived and breathed, and we need to be the pioneers in that, and we need to make sure that everybody's okay. And again, I think charity needs to start at home. So, you know, I do encourage our viewers to, inshallah, think a little bit outside the box. As I said previously, maybe there's somebody that you can donate your time to. My friend's really good at cooking. I hate cooking, but when they cook me 3 meals, I really appreciate it, because it saves me time and it gives me time with my child and other things. So maybe think of something that you can do There's so many things we can do in the name of Imam Hussein that would, inshallah, they would pay it forward from them seeing what we can do. So maybe think outside the box, you know, the family member that you haven't called, call them.
Yeah.
Time to make peace, do it. So little things. It's all lovely going to majlises, but be good if you could do something with your own hands. Really enjoyed being with you all, sisters, inshallah. Do keep me in your prayers during Muharram. And also you, inshallah, we hope to see you on the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.